Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. On tonight's show, a Steelers insider hints that a Nick Herbig trade could be on the horizon. I'll let you guys know what this insider had to say at the top of today's program. Then we'll get into a potential perfect left guard target that has just emerged right before NFL free agency for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then there's an interesting Steelers coaching theory surrounding Mike McCarthy and Mike Tomlin that could really shake things up in the next couple of years. Make sure you guys stick around to see what that is. But Browns host here at Chat Sports, Joey O'Donohue, and I have a bet this week. He has challenged me to a merchandise battle here on Steelers Talk. So as you guys know, we have our Steel City Drinking Team t-shirts available for sale on our website right now, chatsports.com/pitgreen. That link is down there in the comments and description of today's show. And JOD, as we like to call him here at Chat Sports, has challenged me to see who can sell the most t-shirts of Cleveland. Also has a Drinking Team t-shirt, and he said whoever sells the most by the end of the week owes the other one a steak dinner. So I said, you are absolutely on. We have never, ever lost any of these kinds of battles to the Cleveland Browns report here by Chat Sports. I'm not about to start that now, guys. So if you guys want to get a piece of our merchandise here at Steelers Talk, you guys can get this t-shirt today, chatsports.com/pitgreen. My bosses also tell me that the more that we sell of these things, the more merchandise opportunities that we're going to have on this channel moving forward. This is a limited edition t-shirt available only up until St. Patrick's Day, guys. So join the Steelers Drinking Team today, chatsports.com/pitgreen to help us beat JOD and the Browns report right here on Steelers Talk. All right, so let's kick off tonight's show here with Ray Fittipaldo from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, who says that if the Pittsburgh Steelers trade an edge rusher this offseason, it's going to be Nick Herbig, who has been the rotational edge rusher here in Pittsburgh the last several years. This is what Ray had to say. I believe it was on Pittsburgh radio earlier this week. If they do decide to trade an edge rusher, I think it would be Nick Herbig as opposed to trading one of your starters in TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith. Even though there's been a lot of speculation around TJ Watt, I think that would be hard to pull off. Now, I have to say here, I have to agree with Ray Fittipaldo on this one, where I do think the more likely situation here is that Nick Herbig would be the one that gets traded if the Steelers decide to trade one of these guys this offseason. Obviously, the ideal situation is Herbig is cool, being the number 3 edge rusher, and comes back for another season, and maybe they have a more three-way starting rotation among Watt, Highsmith, and Herbig next year. That would be like the best case scenario. But Pittsburgh has made abundantly clear with the way they talked about Watt last year in particular, leading up to them giving him that massive contract, that they want him to be a one-helmet guy. And they consider him a legend of the organization, and it seems like this is going to be like a Big Ben Roethlisberger type of situation where they're going to keep him, and they're going to keep him under a heavy contract for as long as Watt wants to continue playing, because they don't want to let go of someone who they consider to be a franchise legend, and they want to be loyal to their big-time names here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it does sound like Nick Herbig is done being a rotational guy, and who can blame him? He's been really, really good, especially these last 2 years getting after the quarterback. He's actually been a good run defender as well, something that not a lot of people thought that he was going to be able to do as an edge rusher coming out of Wisconsin, which is why the Steelers were able to get him in the middle rounds back there during the 2023 NFL draft. And, I think that he's somebody that wants to get, paid like a starter and wants full-time starting reps. Right now, obviously, if he stays, he'd be the number 3 edge rusher in the Steelers rotation, and right now he's only slated to get about $3.7 million in cash for the 2026 season. My guess is he wants to get an extension this offseason, and he wants to play for a team that's going to play him full-time starting reps, because frankly, he's earned it. And I just don't know if I can really see Nick Herbig after the seasons he's had the last 2 years just being okay, sitting and playing third fiddle behind TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, and especially when he's putting numbers up like this, man, where he's going toe-to-toe with Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt, actually outperforming TJ Watt in the pressure metrics last year. Now, obviously, TJ gets double-teamed more and all that different stuff. That certainly plays a factor into it, but Herbig's been a really good player. I think every Steelers fan out there would agree that he's been awesome in his time in a Steelers uniform, and it would really suck if we had to say goodbye to him. But it certainly sounds like he's done, playing third fiddle, and he wants to be a full-time starter. Braden Fajoku, who obviously was his teammate here in Pittsburgh, tweeted this out earlier this offseason. He says, "Just talked with Nick Herbig. He doesn't care about out the trade smoke. He's ready to just be viewed and treated as a full-time starter, whether it's in Pittsburgh or elsewhere. Pittsburgh needs to decide what they want to do with that edge room. Nick Herbig is a starter, no more pitch count. So I just don't really see Herbig sticking around as the third edge rusher anymore, guys, as much as it's nice to have a three-headed monster at outside linebacker here in Pittsburgh. Now, you might be saying at home, but Jack, why not trade Alex Highsmith and then start TJ Watt and Nick Herbig moving forward? Well, guys, when you look at Highsmith's situation, he's a massive value for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, and just by the numbers, he was the most efficient pass rusher on the Pittsburgh Steelers last year with over a 14% pressure rate last year, which is just absolutely insane. But you guys can take a look at the cap hits for next year. I mean, Alex Highsmith, who's 28 years old and is like a legitimate, like top-end number 2 edge rusher, maybe a low-end number 1 type of guy, you're only paying him $20 million against the cap at this stage in his career. I think if he hit the market this year, he'd probably make close to $30 million per season against the cap. And, right now the Steelers have him under contract for multiple years at an incredible value. I just don't think it really makes sense to trade away that valuable contract at this point. And then you got TJ Watt, who's up at $42 million per season at this point. You could always restructure him. That's a possibility. And then Nick Herbig's, cap hit is not that high, just $1.3 million heading into this year. That is if you don't restructure him and extend him. But personally, I think trading TJ Watt makes the most sense. I've made this case a number of times on this channel, guys. I just think that TJ is the oldest, most expensive, and least productive player in this group. Also, when TJ was dealing with his lung thing, the 3 games where he was out last year, the Steelers were a top 10 defense statistically in the 3 weeks that he was out. So obviously Herbig and Highsmith are good enough to hold down the fort at the edge rusher position as this team's full-time starters. And, I kind of doubt that the Steelers are going to move on from TJ Watt, like I said, because I think they want him to be a one-helmet guy. They view him as a franchise icon, and they don't want him wearing any other uniform. But I also worry that this is going to turn into a big Ben Roethlisberger situation where we're kind of staying loyal to players that are kind of past their prime. We're overpaying them, and it's just a bad situation for the football team. I think sometimes the Steelers' loyalty to their, great players can get them in trouble from time to time in terms of roster construction. And, I will say if you trade Nick Herbig, I think that the price tag is probably a day 2 draft pick, either a round 2 or round 3 pick. He's never been a full-time starter, so that's going to affect his trade value. But obviously the team that's trading for him is probably going to give him an extension and give him a full-time starting role. So I could see it being as high as a round 2 pick. Maybe you have to end up settling for a round 3 pick, but I could also see him being used to trade for a big-name wide receiver, right? Maybe you can take a strength of your football team here with a loaded edge rusher room and then, unload one of those players so that you can, get a different strength on the different side of the ball here at wide receiver. And Lord knows the Steelers' offensive roster needs that. If you could get a superstar like A.J. Brown or Jalen Waddle or one of these guys that could really, really help the Steelers offense, and you can lower, the price tag to get those players by including Nick Herbig in that deal, that is something I'm absolutely willing to do if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers and I absolutely want to keep TJ Watt, for example. So there's 3 different ideas that I've put together, guys. Like if you want, just a straight second round pick, I think Carolina's a team that could make sense. They run a 3-4 there in Carolina with Ejiro Evero, and they don't have any good edge rushers. I could see them wanting Nick Herbig. They have the number 51st overall pick in the second round. That could be something the Steelers could be interested in. If you want to go out and get Jalen Waddle, a person that the Steelers were trying to pursue before the trade deadline last year, you could include Herbig in the deal along with a third-round pick to get Waddle in your building. You don't have to give up a first or a second-round pick to get Waddle as your wide receiver too. That would be pretty nice. And then if you want to go for the big fish here with A.J. Brown, maybe you could go with Nick Herbig in a second and a third. Maybe the Eagles would ask for Herbig in a first. I don't know. A.J. Brown is a really, really good player, man. But, these 3 trade offers is definitely a couple offers I would be interested in if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers and I have to trade Nick Herbig this offseason. But let me know, which one are you taking down there in the comments section between these 3 trade ideas. Which one are you taking? Type 1 if you're taking the Carolina deal. Type 2 if you're taking the Miami Dolphins deal and bringing Jalen Waddle here to Pittsburgh. Or type 3 if you want to go for the big fish here in A.J. Brown and pair him up with DK Metcalf here in the Steel City. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our brand new sponsor here on Steelers Talk, Rag and Bone. While I tell you about our sponsor today, type 1, 2, or 3 for me down there in the comments. You guys might have noticed that I'm wearing a new shirt today, and I actually got this from our brand new sponsor here at Steelers Talk, Rag & Bone. Rag & Bone Infuse offers a range of fits tailored for any style and occasion. From slim and straight to athletic and relaxed, Infused denim is a wardrobe staple that pairs perfectly with any outfit and whatever fit you prefer. For a limited time only, our listeners get 20% off their entire order with code CHAT at rag-bone.com. I was completely blown away the first time I tried on my Rag & Bone shirt and jeans because of how broken in they already felt and how high quality the materials were. I used to have to choose between jeans that look great and ones that actually lasted, but with Rag & Bone, I finally get the best of both worlds. Rag & Bone Infused Denim is crafted with a proprietary 8-step over-dye process. It gives each piece a rich dimensional color that gets better with every wash, and not only do they look great, but Rag & Bone makes jeans that are built to last, that actually get more comfortable the more that you wear them. It's time to upgrade your denim with Rag & Bone today. For a limited time only, our listeners get 20% off their entire order with code CHAT at rag-bone.com. That's 20% off at rag-bone.com with promo code CHAT. When they ask where you heard about them, please support our show and tell them that we sent you. And a big thank you to Rag & Bone for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Now let's shift our focus here to a potential perfect left guard target for the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason. In Packers interior offensive lineman Elgton Jenkins here, and Bill Huber from Sports Illustrated reported this weekend that the Packers are likely to release Jenkins this offseason as a cap casualty. Now, something you need to know about Jenkins is that he was Aaron Rodgers' left guard in Green Bay, a really good friend of Aaron's from 2019 through 2022 in the final years of Rodgers playing in Green Bay. And Jenkins has been considered one of the better left guards in football for a very, very long time. You guys can take a look at how he graded in the PFF grading scales here. Now, obviously, PFF grades are not gospel necessarily, but he's been a very, very solid starting guard, ranking easily inside the top 30 and definitely in the top half of starting guards in the National Football League for a while. But last year, the Packers decided to sign Aaron Banks and move Jenkins to center, and he had the worst year of his career. Like, he is just not a center. He's more of a guard, in my opinion. And, you know, the PFF grading certainly reflected that, a 62.0 PFF grade, which isn't terrible. I think that was still in the second, in the top half among centers in the league last year, but that was the lowest grade of Jenkins's career. And I think as he's about to hit free agency, apparently, and he's about to get cut, I do think that he's somebody that could get a pretty decent payday with somebody as a really good left guard and has been for a while in the league. Now, Spotrac currently projects his next contract at 4 years, $60.7 million. If you can't do math, that's around $15 million per season. So I look at Jenkins as somebody that's a pretty darn good player, has, you know, played with Aaron Rodgers before, so he understands what he expects from that position. Not to mention he's a veteran, and I think that getting a veteran left guard makes a lot of sense for such a young offensive line that still exists here in Pittsburgh. But at that price tag, man, I might just think about bringing back Isaac Seumalo. I mean, right now he's projected at like a 2-year, $14 million per season type of deal, and I look at Seumalo as somebody that's been that elder statesman in this offensive line room for the last several years. He's been a mentor to so many of these guys, not to mention he already has the continuity with the players that already exist on this offensive line. So if I'm paying like $15, $14 million per season for my starting left guard, I might just bring back Isaac Seumalo at this point. But if you guys are enjoying tonight's show, don't forget to click that thumbs up icon. Just a little bit of a reminder here that clicking that thumbs up icon and liking the show is the best way to help us out here for free today. It tells the YouTube algorithm that you are enjoying this content as a Steelers fan and that they should recommend this video to other Steelers fans like yourself. So we'd really appreciate if you click that thumbs up icon here. Now let's get into our final story of the day, where Marcus Whitman, otherwise known as That Franchise Guy on YouTube, definitely recommend his stuff, by the way. He definitely knows ball. Theorizes that Mike Tomlin could return to the Steelers as their head coach after a couple of years of Mike McCarthy, and that the reason why the Steelers hired Mike McCarthy is just to be essentially a stopgap until Mike Tomlin wants to return as this team's head coach. Definitely an interesting theory here from Marcus that I wanted to cover today. This is what he had to say about what he thinks could be going down in Pittsburgh. I do kind of wonder if this is a wink, wink, ha retire, and there's been some conversations with Mike Tomlin where it's like, Mike McCarthy, your job for the next 2 years is to run a good program, steer the ship. We know you can do that. You've won a lot of games in the NFL. You're a very high floor hire in that sense. You know how to run a program. Second, do the one thing that you kind of do bring to the table, and that is get us a quarterback, whether it's through the draft, a free agent, whatever it is. McCarthy does have a pretty good track record with that sort of thing. I'll give him that. If the plan here is Mike's going to set us up with a different window than we had with Mike Tomlin, which Mike Tomlin's big deficiency was they were always good enough and they were never in a position to get that quarterback. If Mike McCarthy can do that for them and then Mike Tomlin steps back in here because he's still under contract, I can see it. Now, first, guys, I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, this is probably very, very unlikely that Mike Tomlin just wants a quote-unquote break and then he's going to be coming back as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. This is something that would be completely unprecedented in NFL history, a coach essentially stepping away from the team to take a break and then coming back as that team's head coach. It's never happened in the history of this league, so this would be the first time that it happens if it does happen, so it's definitely out there. But, what I think does happen with Tomlin is he does want to coach again. I mean, he said just a couple weeks ago, actually, at this point, I got to have it in terms of coaching when he was on the Rich Eisen show. So I just think that, he wants to spend some time with his family, but he's too highly regarded. Once an opportunity with a really great quarterback opens up for Tomlin, I think he's going to want to take that opportunity because I think he's a coaching addict. And I think it'll be nice for him to take a couple, maybe a year or two off to try and find the right opportunity, spend time with his family, all that different stuff. But I do think he's still pretty young for an NFL head coach, and he's going to be coming back as a head coach for somebody. And when that happens, I think the Steelers will get a haul of draft picks, just like the Broncos gave the Saints in exchange for Sean Payton a couple of years ago. But there's one thing that is for sure, guys, that I do agree with Marcus on here, and that's McCarthy is being brought in to deliver our next franchise quarterback. And I think, even if the Steelers don't even win a playoff game during McCarthy's tenure here, if he's here for 4 or 5 years and at the end of that tenure we have a bona fide franchise quarterback that he has developed, like I said, even if the Steelers don't have really any playoff success under McCarthy, I would still consider that like a B+ tenure for Mike McCarthy because that's what we need here in Pittsburgh is a new franchise quarterback. If he delivers that here in Pittsburgh over the next several years, I think it's going to be generally job well done. Obviously, we would love some playoff success as well, but really that franchise quarterback, I would say, is the number one thing McCarthy is being brought in to do. And hey, if Mike McCarthy does that, why would he just give it up? Like, let's say he drafts Ty Simpson this year and he develops him into an awesome NFL starting quarterback. You really think after just 2 years working with Simpson, he's going to be like, oh, yep, I'm good. See ya, Mike Tomlin, take over my quarterback here. It's your team now. Like, no, like Mike McCarthy's not thinking that way at all. He wants to build something of his own here in Pittsburgh. He's been dreaming of this opportunity since he was a young boy. Like, you really think he's going to build this thing up to a point where it's like, oh my gosh, we have our quarterback now, finally. All right, Mike Tomlin, just take it away from me. I'll go retire. Like, no, that's not the way this thing is going to go down. I think Mike McCarthy is here for as long as he can, essentially. And we'll see how long it takes for the Steelers to fire him or, what this tenure looks like. Maybe it's really successful and he's here for 10, 15 years and he's like really, really old by the time he retires. I don't know what this tenure with Mike McCarthy is going to look like, but I can tell you right now the chances of Mike Tomlin returning after 2 years as this team's he would be the fifth head coach in Steelers history and the third head coach. That would just be absolutely insane. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. I think this is kind of a crazy theory from my guy Marcus, but let me know what you guys think. Is there any chance that Mike Tomlin returns to the Steelers as their head coach in the future? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Tomorrow, we have Omar Khan's press conference from the NFL Combine. That'll be up on the channel. Also, Ponzi and I will be live tomorrow evening for our first Steelers Talk live show of the week. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.